I am not a Fire Emblem YouTuber or anything like that, and neither do I even want to be a YouTuber at all, to be honest. But sometimes we just get the urge to make things that are really stupid. Nintendo are probably going to keep us waiting in the dark on this game until they randomly decide to drop an entire full Fire Emblem Direct on a random Tuesday with only 30 minutes warning. So, while we wait, I thought of the dumbest idea ever. We know basically nothing about the characters of Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. What if I ranked them in a tier list, purely based on vibes, and tried to guess what kind of character they might be? There's tier list slop, and then there's tier list stupidity. Yeah, you can really tell that the lack of any news about this game is driving people into insanity, if this is the kind of video someone resorts to making. This isn't going to be a unit quality tier list or whatever, because as stupid as this video is, trying to predict stats and growth rates just completely out of nothing is some next level silliness. Okay, there's probably someone out there who's so deep in the meta of Fire Emblem to determine exactly what class everyone is and guesstimate what their growth rates would be based on that, but I'm not that smart, and I don't think even the most Giga Fire Emblem nerds would want to bother with that when they could just wait for the game to come out. So yeah, this tier list is still going to be really stupid, but it's not going to be completely guesswork. Basically, I'm just predicting how much I'll like these characters based on, well, mostly just vibes and character design. Oh, and it's not just going to be outright confirmed units that are going to be ranked. I'll rank some of the other characters we see in the trailer as well, because who knows, they might be important characters, and maybe some of them might actually be units. A lot of this information on all the units we've seen so far is coming from this image made by Domalee on the Fire Emblem subreddit, and what I could parse from the trailer myself. In total, this is 27 characters that are going to be ranked, and we only know the names of 5 or 6 of them. So forgive me if names like Flower Lady and Roman Guy aren't what they're called in the full game. And a lot of these characters are just in the background, and you can barely tell they're there except for very low resolution screenshots I was able to take of their icons and models, which is made only slightly better because YouTube now lets you zoom in the actual video itself, and the red bar finally goes away when you're paused, but still, we don't have a good look at these guys and gals. Anyway, this video is very stupid and pointless, so I should stop yapping, just get on with it. Theodora. Starting off with a character that I really like just from this one trailer alone. I constantly find myself going back and forth between her and Leda with which of the main lords I like the most so far. She's the ruler of a place that apparently, according to the Japanese trailer, is called Salamis, but that's not present in the English trailer, so who the hell knows what that's going to be localized as. I'm assuming Salamis as a country is probably some combination of Egypt and other northern African countries, just from some of the designs on Theodora, the neck thing she's wearing in particular. Her design also brings to mind Seiros a lot, which feels ironic in some sort of way, considering her crown seems to be dragon bone. It's like she's trying to emulate the look of Seiros, but misinterpreting what Seiros actually stood for. There's seemingly some Edelgard connections too. She gives off a similar sort of vibe at least. Not really specifically post or pre-time skip though. She kind of gives a vibe that's similar to an in-between pre and post time skip for Edelgard. Like she's in the middle phase of being a major queen. Yeah, I just find it to be really cool. I hope the full game doesn't betray this expectation. It would be interesting to see what her dynamic is with other characters like Kai and Dietrich, and just characters in general from those other armies. The only thing that gives me pause is how almost all the lines we've gotten from her is just her shouting about strength. I just hope she's not this character with a lot of potential that just becomes the I want to be strong, I need strength, I wasn't strong enough character in the actual game, and that's all she is. I hope there's more to her than just that. She can't be one note. Weirdly enough, Theodora actually makes me less certain that there'll be a Radiant Dawn style army switching mechanic in this game, simply because she's so imposing that the idea of running around a Somniel type hub and just chilling talking to your units, but as Theodora, just doesn't feel right. Like I can't really picture that in my head. But yeah, Theodora is an easy top tier. I already love her. King and Queen. I'll talk about both these characters because it's not like we see them separately. I don't know how to describe it, but they look like they're someone's parents, which is weird because none of the main characters have blue or red hair like you normally expect from Fire Emblem protagonists. And if they are someone's parents, chances are they're going to die and it'll be a tragic scene full of grief. We sure love those, don't we? I doubt these two are going to be units, but they have some of the more memorable designs in the characters we've seen so far, so maybe they actually will be units, or at least some kind of main character that's not playable, like a Rhea sort of character. Well, the Divine Sovereign seems to fit the Rhea kind of character role more, but I don't know. They're not super interesting, we only have a single shot of them, but I have vague positive feelings, I guess. Mustache guy. This is certainly a guy with a mustache, and an axe. who also looks like he might be bald. He vaguely looks like Kratos if you squint. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say about this guy specifically. He kind of looks more like something you'd see from some random enemy unit in the background of a cutscene. Also, something I noticed going through these characters, there's a lot of units that don't really look like something you'd expect from modern Fire Emblem games. There's a lot of characters that seem less colourful and noble looking, and more gruff and older, which makes me wonder if they look like that for the high testosterone gladiator setting, or if there's a lot more recruitable enemy units than before. Because a lot of these guys just seem like they look perfectly normal as enemy units, but as allies they almost seem out of place, at least in terms of modern games that have really bright, vibrant young adult characters. There's always the possibility of there being a time skip or a second generation, but with so many of the characters looking kind of older, it makes me hesitant if this game will even have pairings, let alone a second generation. Which is a little bit of a shame since, I don't know, I just think pairing in these games is fun. I think it would be cool to get another FE4 style game where the second generation and the time skip are all interlinked, and you have the whole pairing thing leading into different stats in the child units, but in a modern game and not done in the Awakening or Fates way. I know a lot of people don't like second generations or think time skips are forced or whatever, but I don't know, I like them. But yeah, that was kind of a tangent. I'll put him in aggressive indifference and move on. When I see his design, I just don't really get anything from looking at this guy. Hopefully his personality is interesting or endearing or something, because his design is just doing nothing. None with a gun. Who more than likely isn't a nun at all. It's more than likely just one of those things that you wear over your head when you're traversing really hot biomes like deserts and stuff, but saying none with a gun is fun, so I'll call it that. And it's also probably not actually a gun because that would be ridiculous, and it seems more like a magical melee weapon with blades made out of electricity, I think? Or some taser, I don't know. Either way, just from this one trailer, she has a lot of interesting things going for her, and I quite like her design. Vaguely reminds me of Lysithea. Some people even think that she's going to be some ancestor or descendant of Lysithea, but I don't know about that. Interestingly enough, her weapon icon is of a fist when she very clearly has a weapon, so either that's a sign that the icons are unfinished, or for some reason, in this game, fists mean that the character has a Glock. The heavy black and white to the character design is really cool. Can't really get a grasp of her personality though. Still, she's looking kind of promising. Tamara 2. Yes, that's seriously what I'm calling her. Just be thankful Theodora actually has a name, or otherwise I would have called her Edelgard too. And I actually really liked Tamara, so the comparison isn't a bad thing. She's one of the only regular unit characters shown in the trailer that people have said, like, anything about at all, and you can see why. Really bright colours with the turquoise hair and clothing contrasting with the dark skin. It's just a very nice colour combination, and is probably more visually appealing to people than Tamara was. She looks visually loud without being all over the place like people felt Tamara was. One thing that's interesting is that she's seen to be part of Dietrich's army. Who'd you'd expect his army to be the most blatantly European in styling of character design and armour and whatnot, which it mostly is. Pretty much almost all the fair-skinned looking characters are from his army, whereas this character's complexion and clothing style with all the colour very much doesn't seem to fit in with a lot of other characters in Dietrich's army, which almost leads me to believe that she might not actually be from Dietrich's homeland, and maybe from somewhere else, perhaps originating from one of the other armies and joining Dietrich's for whatever reason. Maybe she's actually a part of Kai's group? Anyway, I like her already, so very promising. Probably not Nemesis. Yeah, I don't think this guy's Nemesis. I just don't see it. I think he's really just a generic gladiator enemy guy. Maybe he'll be a named character and he'll be some kind of enemy boss character for a chapter or two, but anything more than that, and I don't really think so. At most, maybe an antagonist for the early game, since they do show him on a scene all on his own, not interacting with any of the other super important characters, but otherwise, aggressive indifference. Some other guy. I'm ranking this guy higher than the guy before, because this guy clashed with Leda, and she's making an interesting face during the clash, which could potentially mean that this is the guy who she wants to get revenge and who she wouldn't be satisfied with just killing. It's kind of unlikely because I don't think they'd show a character that major in the first trailer, but it's not impossible, so he goes up a tier higher. Sothis. This is certainly Sothis. Attachment to the original character will not be applied here, since she would just naturally go to the top of the list, since all the other characters aren't even real characters yet. Just on this game alone though, there's so many roles she could potentially have in this game, and the possibilities are really tantalizing. Is she going to be a villain? Some chaotic neutral force? Is she going to side with us? Is she even fully present, or is this still a spirit version of her? Very promising, I'll say that. One weird thing that makes me no longer see her design the same, her clothing is very different from the type of thing her Three Houses design had, and it's weirdly more covered up than what basically every fan design for what So This used to look like was drawing, so I don't know, it's kinda inconsistent, but it still looks cool, so meh. Some kid. Kinda just a kid with a bow. I'll rank this character slightly higher than I normally would, because the idea of a kid being brought into a gladiator's coliseum is just amusing. Watch, this game will come out and he's actually not even all that young, and he's like Donald, where he's actually in his mid-teens or whatever. Some woman. I hope her full design is something more interesting than what this tiny glimpse implies, because man, that combination of hair color plus hairstyle plus face plus grey dress is just giving strong relative vibes, if that makes sense. Like, she looks very much not like a playable unit, it's kind of bizarre. I don't wish for these characters to be bad, but with what I can go off, I fear she's going to be just a really bland, nothing sort of character. Hopefully she's more like Ingrid, where she kinda has everything going against her, with Ingrid being easily the most bland design for the female students, especially post-time skip, with a name that is considered very unappealing in English, but then turns out to actually be a pretty decent character. Not an amazing or overly memorable character, but not actually all that bland. So hopefully this woman is like that. She kinda looks bland, but isn't actually bland. With that said, she's still going into bottom tier though. Dower Man. I don't know how to describe the vibe this man gives. He looks like a side character in some gothic medieval fantasy series, but he also just looks like some insanely average British bloke. I don't know how to describe him, but he gives off those kind of vibes. But he's apparently a mage, and the black robes kind of give him cult leader vibes. And he's also with Dietrich, who also has his own vaguely dark fantasy gothic vibe, so maybe that's the whole vibe of Dietrich's army? I don't know, this guy specifically I kind of don't care about, to be honest. Dietrich is very mysterious. The other three lords all have quotes that give you a good grasp at the vague premise for their individual stories, but Dietrich is so vague that I have no idea what to make of it. He says, and I quote, "It is imperative that I face it again. I must cull it with this blade." His blade is called the Answerer, so perhaps his blade has specific properties that is designed with culling a specific creature of some kind. I don't know, it's all just very mysterious. And that's without talking about the whole murderous intent plus Crest of Lamine thing. Like, there's a genuine possibility that this guy is somehow in some way has direct blood relation to Yuritsa or Mercedes, but I just don't know why that would be the case for the story and what importance that would have. I actually get the impression that that whole thing might actually not get elaborated upon in the full game and just remain as some Easter egg for those who remember the Crest of the Three Houses. Like, I just don't see Dietrich and a random support being like, yes, I got this crest stone from my great-great-grandmother Mercedes, or there being a major story scene where he talks about being the son of the Death Knight or whatever. I guess I'm just not fully sold on Dietrich just yet. His design kinda looks Norian. He has that overly European look with some hint of gothicness to him that just gives him a Norian vibe. He definitely seems like an outsider to whatever land Fortune's Weave takes place on. I mean, we literally see him on a boat. Yes, this could just be a cutscene for a boat map, but this seems very introductory to his character, so I kind of doubt it. But at the same time, Theodora also kind of seems like an outsider, and maybe you could extend that same logic to Leda, who also doesn't look too particularly Roman or Greek. So maybe everyone besides Kai is an outsider to the heroic games and have traversed the continent just to participate. Unit-wise, he seems cool. The teleportation seems pretty cool. I tend to like units like that, even though they're very easy to mess up when using them since it's so tempting just to have them teleport somewhere far away from the rest of the units, because you want to cross as many tiles as you can, only to have that unit just get absolutely destroyed by a bunch of enemies because you didn't think that maybe, just maybe, they needed backup. He also has an unusually high crit chance in the trailer, but I think that's just a trailer modification. Chill dude. You know, the guy Dietrich pulls the answer to in a cutscene. I don't think he's important. I really don't think this guy will be anything more than literally just some guy in this one scene, though if I'm wrong and he's actually like Lada's best buddy or something, that'd be hilarious. But yeah, I think he's just a background character, so aggressive indifference. I just don't think he's going to be a unit. Badass axe user. He looks like a badass, he has an axe. I feel compelled to put him in promising. I don't know, he just seems really cool. And I also just kind of like axe users in Fire Emblem games. Maybe it's a bias or something. Lady you can barely see. She looks like what the just some woman character is supposed to be, in terms of striking character design wise. I don't know about specific vibe, since the other lady seems a lot less high class as this lady, but whatever. Yeah, she seems pretty neat. People are already saying that this could be a Constance ancestor / descendant, when you can barely see her, and I just think that's crazy talk. Like, yeah, she seems prim and proper, and she's blonde, and there's blue accents to her dress, but come on. Vague positive feelings. I have no idea. This guy's in the far, far background of a Theodora scene, and I'm guessing he's some kind of important figure in her life. Perhaps Theodora isn't actually a queen, and she wants to earn her right to the throne that this guy is currently sitting on. I don't know. He's probably going to be very, very important, specifically to Theodora's character journey and storyline or whatever. But apart from that, I don't know what to think. Doubt he'd be a unit. Kind of don't care, to be honest. Glasses girl. I don't think she's a time traveler. I just think they gave this girl fairly modern looking glasses in a setting that's meant to be reminiscent of ancient Rome because they wanted her to have glasses. Yeah, glasses are modern, and the rest of her outfit look reminiscent of a Japanese school uniform, but at the same time, it's only reminiscent. If she was actually meant to be a time traveler, then wouldn't it just be actually modern clothing instead of this weird old clothing that is meant to invoke modern clothing? I also don't think she's secretly the actual real protagonist or an avatar or whatever, all because of the logic of you never see her talk, because most of these characters we don't see talking. I think she's just going to be a close companion of Kai and be a very, very early unit. If she does turn out to secretly be an avatar, I wouldn't hate it, but I do think we are overdue for a game without an avatar, and Fortune's Weave just does not seem like a game that would benefit from one. I've also heard the suggestion that maybe she's not the player's avatar, but she's instead going to be an avatar of Sothis, and instead of Sothis trying to reincarnate in the protagonist or whatever, it's Sothis reincarnating in the protagonist's friend, which could be interesting. She's alright. The glasses don't really bother me too much. Vague positive feelings. Guy who's everywhere. This guy is in 3 different people's armies, which further leads me to believe that there will be a bunch of units that you can just use in all the armies, and that those units will be affiliated with Kai and essentially bounce between the different armies. And yeah, he doesn't look all that crazy, he's just a red-headed guy with a sword and what maybe looks like a scar over his face, but the fact that he's in 3 separate armies is fascinating, and makes me think that he might be a much more major character, so he's going in promising tier. The Divine Sovereign. I think there's a good chance this guy could end up being the main villain of the game, and I don't know how I feel about that. It feels like too obvious of a way this character could go, but I genuinely think it's likely to happen, so... And also, ever since people have pointed out how weird certain parts of his character design is, I haven't been able to look at him the same. He definitely seems like he'll be the Rhea equivalent of this game. Not super literally filling Rhea's role, though he does appear to be some kind of Nabatean, so... I just hope there's more to him besides guy who appears good but then reveals he's evil. Vague positive feelings. Flower Lady. I don't know. The dark green plus the longer sort of face plus the completely shut eyes is just kind of making me wary of this character. Who knows, maybe she's actually going to be a very lovely person and the shut eyes is more of that graceful, relaxed, mystical maiden sort of character. And the shade of green on her actual model is a lot more pleasant. But she also has the hand icon for the weapon, which since she's a part of Dietrich's army, likely means she's also strapped. So maybe I'm right to not want to mess with her. Bottom tier. She kinda scares me. Kai. I don't really like Kai so far. To be fair, we only have a single trailer, and we barely know anything about him, but based solely on what we've seen from the trailer, and based on similar sorts of these young protagonists, I don't think I'm a fan. He's portrayed in such a quote-unquote unimpressive sort of way that makes it almost seem like there might be some kind of big event in the 2/3 mark of this game, and then Kai will turn into some kind of badass, and he might have a more cool design or something. I don't know, maybe a time skip? Because yeah, I just think his hair is too silly looking. I honestly can't tell if they're trying to make him a tan-skinned Greek guy or a light-skinned black guy. The hair being textured like that is intentional though, but it's really not done in a great way, and I kind of hope the finished game makes it look a lot better. Because right now, it just looks like he's got a bunch of really low poly purple aloe veras dangling in his hair. It looks a lot better in his portrait though, which is just yet another case of characters looking significantly better in art than they do when put into 3D, but I digress. I will say, I really like his class. If he is indeed the main protagonist, then a main lord in a Fire Emblem game being an ostrich rider is really unique. For being easily my least favourite of the 4 lords of this game, he easily has my favourite class. I've seen the speculation that perhaps he won't just be an Orneus rider, and that his whole class will be that he can ride a bunch of different animals, which would be pretty cool. The prospect of having a whole bunch of unique mounted units in this game has me excited. The mere prospect of having Carthaginian war elephants is just so cool, and would be something completely new for Fire Emblem, but would fit in so well. But I'm getting off track. Kai also seemingly has the crest of Albin, which is interesting for the presumed main character to have a crest of a character from the DLC of the previous game. And he also has something going on with his hand. don't think it's too out of the realm of possibility for that to be where his crest stone is embedded. For supposedly being the main protagonist, there really isn't a whole lot to say about him that's all that positive. And yes, I do think he's the protagonist. Some people think he'll be on the same tier as Theodora, Dietrich, and later, and will be like the three lords from Three Houses where you can choose him and he'll be a character that can accompany you for the quote-unquote Kai route. But Kai so far just looks so unimpressive while everyone else looks pretty cool that I just don't see Kai being that kind of character. He's just too different compared to the other three, and I think that's intentional, because I think he's a more important character who will grow and develop throughout the story into being more cool like the other three lords, perhaps having them as direct inspirations and role models. Maybe even fighting alongside each one of them in their own armies, and with his newfound badassness, he'll be able to save his father, because we sure as hell don't need another main protagonist's parents' death for the 400th time in a row in this series. At least, that's where I'm hoping this character will go. Because I just can't see his character being lame for the entire game. But right now, he's not going to be scoring high. But I would really love the full game to prove me wrong and for him to actually be a really cool character. Pirate guy. He's already ranking high just for being a pirate. Okay, maybe he's not an actual pirate, but come on, he definitely looks like one. Even without the eye patch, that facial structure just screams pirate. So I hope he's got the personality to match. Promising to you. Guy who you can barely see. You can barely see this guy because he gets cut off by the YouTube play bar, and he's just not on screen for long at all, and even then you can only see half of him, and his icon isn't very distinctive. I can barely make out any discernible features, and what I can make out isn't all that interesting. He just kind of looks like another older, well-built man. Maybe he has a dagger? He just has to go in aggressive indifference. I don't see anything that makes me care. Maybe he'll be an amazing character in the game though. Roman guy. I'm calling this guy Roman guy because the headdress reminds me a lot of the kind of things you see in character designs that are meant to reference ancient Rome. Interesting that he's a part of Theodora's army, considering Theodora seems a little Egypt-inspired. Brings to mind Cleopatra sort of stuff. Makes me wonder if he's not actually from Theodora's nation, but of a nation closer to the heroic games, like a nation that is just outside neighbouring the heroic games, or maybe literally from the nation of Daxia, or whatever it's called in the Japanese trailer. He seems kinda neat. A younger character in the sea of gruff older warriors in these armies. I can't tell for the life of me what his class is though. I'm pretty sure it's a mount and he has a spear, but whatever the hell the mount is, I'm not sure. It almost looks like it has feathers, but it's not a flying mount like a Pegasus or a Phoenix, so I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of fictional animal, or maybe it's not that complicated and this is just the same Orneus Rider class that Kai has. I don't know. Vague positive feelings. Cat Masked Woman. Not confirmed to be a unit, but she's in a cutscene and she has a very striking, mysterious design with a crest stone around her neck. She's very clearly going to be a unit, or some other important character. It seems very likely. Otherwise, not much to say. They literally have their identity obscured, and we don't see them in gameplay or even know if they're a unit, so yeah. If I have to pinpoint whose army this character is from, I'd say Theodora's, but no reason really. Later. And finally, the other character that I like enough just from this one trailer to believe that they could be a favourite. What a way to set up a character motivation. There's a man I hate so much that even killing him won't satisfy me. I think it's how it goes. But wow, what a way to immediately get intrigued by a character. Her design is very striking too. Having one of the main lords be a dancer is really interesting, but having it be a more malicious and potentially really dark kind of character while also still being a dancer, I don't know, I just think it's cool. We see this shot in the trailer, and I think most people are of the consensus that this is a young Leda, and maybe some kind of event involving this man that Leda wants revenge on. Essentially, this is a tragic backstory cutscene, but I've also seen people suggest that this may be a different character, like a younger relative of Leda, which I guess isn't impossible, but I think it's just more likely to just be Leda. I think out of all the main lords, Leda is the most popular, and it's easy to understand why. She's just really cool. And while I'm not sure if I can call her my favourite, she's definitely in the same tier as Theodora at the top, being potential favourites that I'm really looking forward to whenever this game releases. Well, that was certainly one of the videos of all time. Nintendo could just drop another trailer tomorrow and render this entire thing pointless. But hey, it was kind of fun? Emphasis on the kind of? Yeah, okay, this video was really stupid, so I'm just gonna end the video.